My wife's family staged an intervention about my gambling problem. I don't gamble, but they needed me gone. I walked into what I thought was going to be a normal Sunday dinner at my wife's parents' house, but instead found myself facing a semicircle of concerned faces in their living room. My wife sat next to her mother, tissues already in hand, while her father cleared his throat and began explaining how they'd all gathered to help me with my gambling addiction. The confusion hit me like a freight train because I've never placed a bet in my life, never bought a lottery ticket, never even played poker with friends. The whole thing started 3 months ago when my wife began acting strange, taking hushed phone calls and disappearing for hours at a time. I figured she was planning something for my birthday or maybe dealing with work stress, so I didn't push it. But then she started asking weird questions about my daily routines, where I went during lunch breaks, and why I sometimes came home late from the office. When I explained that I'd been staying late to finish projects or grabbing coffee with colleagues, she'd nod, but I could see doubt in her eyes. Her sister jumped in during the intervention, listing off all the evidence they'd compiled against me. Apparently, I'd been seen at various locations around town during times when I should have been at work. My mood had been different lately, and I'd been secretive about my phone. The irony wasn't lost on me that they were accusing me of being secretive, while they'd clearly been conducting some kind of surveillance operation behind my back. My mother-in-law added that gambling addiction runs in families, pointing out that my uncle had struggled with it years ago, as if that somehow made me genetically predisposed to developing the same problem. I tried to explain that I'd been taking longer lunch breaks because I'd been meeting with a real estate agent, looking at potential investment properties as a surprise for our 5th wedding anniversary. The plan was to buy a small rental property that could generate passive income for our future family. But every time I started to explain, someone would interrupt with another piece of evidence or share a story about how addicts always deny their problems. My wife's brother even pulled out printed articles about gambling addiction and the signs to watch for, highlighting passages that supposedly described my recent behavior. The whole situation felt surreal, like I was living in some kind of parallel universe where my perfectly normal activities had been twisted into evidence of a secret addiction. I'd been meeting with the real estate agent twice a week, sometimes during lunch and sometimes after work, which explained my changed schedule. I'd been researching neighborhoods and property values on my phone, which explained my increased phone usage. I'd been excited about the surprise, which might have made me seem different or distracted at home. But the more I tried to explain, the more convinced they became that I was in denial. My wife started crying, saying she'd noticed money missing from our joint account, which completely baffled me because I'd been using my personal savings for the property research and hadn't touched our shared finances. When I mentioned this,